Yeah, well, I found a parking spot. Being at Trader Joe's reminded me to talk about nuts because it's a good nut source. This is one of those things that are important, but you live longer if you have a number of servings per week of nuts. You live longer statistically in terms of cultures if you have a meaningful proportion of your diet as beans. There are no guarantees. But the wider the variety of healthful foods, the better you're likely to be off. So nuts, you want them unprocessed. That doesn't mean in the shell. You can do that process. Raw and not salted. You do not need to supplement salt, hardly ever. When I was doing a lot of jiu-jitsu, a lot of sweating, my sweat was not salty. You need a little bit. I would supplement because it's not a big part of my diet. So I would put salt in my recovery drink. What is recovery? It means give your body every opportunity that you can to replace what you've used up. So I'm not a creatine guy, but you use creatine as an energy source. So I'd use a little bit of creatine to replace what I was using. As an example, there's the look at me, I'm so puffy and muscular. Those guys, about appearance, supplement creatine for that purpose. I'm sure they have a reason for it. It doesn't have to be a health problem, but you stop taking the supplement, you shrink back down to your actual size. It's like online filters. I saw you push a button and then you're a clown face and you're okay, but apparently there are ones that just they soften out your features, and it's inauthentic. I understand people have their feelings and egos. It's like makeup. You put makeup on, you present your face to the world. I think that's fine, especially if you're going out for the evening. But if you spend an hour before you go to the store, there's not a lot of balance there. I don't think your sense of self-identity should depend on a mirror. I don't think it should depend on what other people think of you. It's almost harsh. No, it's not harsh. It's just honest and easy. But it's so out of line, especially with the online social media culture that we have now, the impression that we make. So I was saying nuts and the categories of food that promote health and longevity. Nuts. You want them, nuts to you. You want them raw and unsalted. Unsalted because hardly anybody needs to be supplementing salt. I do, and it's not a lot. It's just enough to replace it. If for no other reason, you make stomach acid, hydrochloric acid, out of the chloride. And sodium chloride is one of the sources of that atom. It is a source, so it's not a bad thing. High sodium diet, there's a book on the lie about salt and how salt is not a problem and your high blood pressure is not because of the salt. The guys who are saying, I'm the one guy who has the truth and everybody else is wrong, maybe that exists, but check it out. The keto people. So you need the right amount of salt. And if you're eating salty potato chips and salted nuts and salty chips of various sorts, you don't need to be supplementing your salt. You're getting way, way, way too much. Your mucus should not be salty. If your mucus is salty, that's because it got into your lymphatic system, all that extra salt. Your lymphatic system, it's the trucks that go to the garbage dump. The toilet is the dump, or this expectorating, spitting it out, is the, as it were, dump, the geyser. If your mucus is salty, you just have too much salt in your system, and your body is purging it. That may not be why you have a lot of mucus. On the other hand, maybe it is. Your body is saying, hey, way too much salt here. This is not a healthful situation. And your poor, abused body is doing what it can do to set a proper homeostasis, and you're just not letting it because you keep on supplementing salt. Well, that's salt. Raw nuts. Why raw? Heat makes fat go rancid. Heat, air, and light. And there's not a lot of light that's going to be getting inside a nut. Not a lot of air that's going to be air and light. Yeah, it's a nut. It's got a hard surface and not necessarily transparent. But heat, that's the roasting. And heat is one of the things that make fat go rancid. And you just roasted your nuts. Now, did all the fat go rancid? What's the proportion? I don't know. Depends. Depends how long and under what conditions and how big the nut is and any number of factors. But you have increased the rancidity. In other words, you've increased the toxicity. Rancid fats promote free radicals and they're mutagenic. They literally mutate your DNA. So you don't want your nuts roasted. I mean, oh, but that's the only way I like them. Okay, well, then don't eat them. Or eat them even though you don't like them. How grown up are you? Are you willing to do the thing you don't really like because it's good for you? You know how mom used to say, eat your vegetables. Yeah, eat your vegetables. Find a way that you can palate them and eat them because they are very, very good for you. And it's the same with nuts. They're very, very good for you. Look, if you're only going to eat roasted nuts, okay, that is literally better than not eating nuts. The nutritional value is there. It's just not perfect. And you don't have to be perfect. A handful of nuts, really a day. I eat a fair number of macadamians, 90% fat. But I've told you about how I do have generally low body fat. It's not my usual way, but I told you, 3% body fat. I wasn't preparing for anything. It's not going to be my Speedo debut with baby oil in the spotlight. It's just something that I was doing. So I don't mind having a high content of nuts, of the fat, 90% fat macadamians. Look, if you eat nuts, nobody ever got fat from eating just nuts. It's a really good energy source. There's my 300-pound life, 600-pound life guy. Those guys, so dysfunctional. You've got to be more prescriptive. There are things that they just are not allowed to eat if they're going to get well. It's a pathological situation. It can draw out of you so much compassion because it's such a tragedy. And the thing about the injustice of it is, look, you have a problem because of your addiction. That's on you. You did that. Oh, but it's my genes. Yeah. But you didn't have to start with the heroin. You have an addictive gene in it, but you didn't have to start. Oh, yeah, it's my upbringing. Yeah, that's a tragedy too. Your parents were idiots who didn't teach you how to not take heroin. Oh, well, teenagers are rebellious. Yes, well, that's true. That's human nature. But where in the world does common sense come in? So there's that individual responsibility. Now, my point is, we all have our vices. But that's everybody, and that's just part of being honestly human, is we admit these things. We're not there to degrade ourselves with inappropriate confessions. But the point that I'm making is the fat guy. He's the one whose vice you can see. I have an anger issue. I have an alcohol issue. I have a dishonesty issue. You can keep it hidden. So this is the reason. This is one of the reasons I'm doing these talks. There's a way to fix it, and it's exercise, it's nutrition, and it is lifestyle. So that's where I'll leave it.